What's happening, everybody? Trey here, joined by my dad, Sean, and today at Reactions to the Classics, we are up to the year 1987 in our top 5 albums by year draft, cruising through the 80s here, Dad.
We're flying, man. It seems like we just started, guys. So if it's your first time joining us, kind of the way this thing works is on this draft, I get first pick, Trey gets 2 and 3, I get 4 and 5, and so on. We just alternate every year. Sometimes it's great to have first pick. Sometimes it's a strong year. You'd rather have 2 and 3, but pay attention because we're going to need you to share in the comments below your favorite 5 albums, if you have 5 albums that are your favorite from 87, and who you think won. We started this all the way back in 1965, Trey. I can't believe we are this far along, but guess who gets the first choice here?
You do, man. You get the first, and you're going to choose what I would have chosen.
87 is a pretty strong year. Is a pretty darn strong year. I mean, it might be the strongest year we've come across so far in the 80s. What do you think about that before?
I'd say 85 was stronger, but...
yeah, that could be. I think 87's right up there. That could be.
But yeah, no, still a very strong year with a lot of notable artists releasing major works.
Well, we have a full album reaction of this up. One of the first ones we did, if not the first full album reaction. We did reviews. It's Prince, Sign of the Times. I'll link everything, by the way, that we've reviewed down below so you can check it out later. Prince's 9th studio album, 6 in the U.S., took 3 albums into one, Trey. Very diverse. He did most of it on his own. He just partnered with the Revolution. Oh, they do pop in on certain songs. Title track is obviously tremendous. Quite the political statement and way to start.
Yeah, aged very well, in my opinion.
You Got the Look, a perfect single.
Oh, yeah.
I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man.
Great.
The Cross is just so fantastic. Prince sharing his faith. And then Starfish and Coffee is a low-key song that I really, really enjoyed.
Love that track.
He had 3 albums. He tried to make this a triple album, and the record label told him no. But he had one that he kind of did under an alter ego. So he's got sped up lyric or sped up vocals. So it's a very diverse sounding album as you go from track to track because there are really three albums in their own. But man, it stands up. And I think one of the underrated gems. It's a big statement, but of the entire 80s.
No, man, I think it's a fantastic album, and being a double record, it's one of those that, doesn't have much in the way of filler either.
No,
so,
it doesn't.
Hats off, as we always say, to the great Prince there, man. And so going to my pick now, I'm going to be going maybe a bit left field.
You are very much so, considering your next 2 picks on here, but I like it.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little Dinosaur Jr. action. You're Living All Over Me. Their second record. A unique blend of it has very kind of lo-fi production on it, and yet the guitars by old Jay Mascis here are quite noisy and kind of has a slower, drawn-out vocals. So you got a lot of like contrast on this record, and yet it somehow comes together and works well as a full package right here. I think it is one of the great indie alt-rock albums of the 80s, and that's in a mix of a lot of great alternative rock records in the decade. My highlights on this are going to be Tar Pit, Little Furry Things, and A Jar, and Raisins. And so keeping kind of in that alt rock.
Before you finish, I want to pipe in on this album for a second. I would have chosen this album in my top 5 as well. I was blown away by the quality of this album. I loved it. And Dinosaur Jr. may appear on further lists.
That's right, man. Well,
all right, go on.
Going to a group that has appeared on previous lists.
And it's going to appear almost every year, spoiler alert.
We got REM coming in with Document, their 5th record, last IRS album right here. This is actually their first platinum record. Quite politically charged in here. Stipe kind of bringing the heat. We move away, you look at their first record, Murmur, to this, that kind of abstractness and the lyricism has definitely diminished as time has gone on. Sees Scott Litt joining the band for the first time on production. Big hits, of course, are going to be The One I Love and It's the End of the World.
Which had a great, during COVID, had a great resurrection, didn't it?
You're right, man. Those are the 2 big hits, but I also like the closer, Oddfellows, Local 151. King of Birds is really good. Exhuming McCarthy, talking about that political nature of the record. Yet again, just the highlights of REM that you'd expect are in here in spades, and one of in the running for possibly the best band of the 80s, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, without question. Huge REM guy here. Another guy I'm a huge guy of is my number 2 album of the year, which is an album that I own, Trey. Don't know that. I listened to it all the way through back in this time, but I never revisited.
Yeah.
And never thought super highly of it, but we got Tunnel of Love, Bruce Springsteen.
Okay.
See, I like to build up the drama before I give you the album, Trey. It's part of the art. His 8th studio album, although members of the E Street Band were occasionally on here, he did this album without them. He recorded most of it by himself, often with drum machines and synthesizers, as was in vogue in 1987. It won Best Rock Vocal Performance solo with 88 Grammys. In 89, it was ranked 25 on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 best albums of the 80s. US and UK #1. You got Brilliant Disguise. You got One Step Up. A song I don't care for that much is the title track. So whenever I think in the past, whenever I go back and see the album, I'm like, Tunnel of Love is okay. This album is remarkably consistent and is one of the hidden gems in the Boss's album catalog. So absolutely love it.
No, I actually haven't heard it in full, so I need to, man. I need to.
You definitely do, man. You'll be surprised. I know you like you some Springsteen. My third pick, which would have been some people's first pick, and then some people also hate this band. So if you hate them, too bad, because I really like them. U2, The Joshua Tree. 5th studio album, won Grammy Awards for Album of the Year, Best Rock Performance in '88. Sold over 25 million copies worldwide. This is the album that put them on the map, right? They were growing, but this is the album that put them over. We have a full album reaction of this, or review of this up. So if you want to know about this, we went pretty deep into this because I really like it. But obviously, the way this album starts out with Where the Streets Have No Name, With or Without You, and I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Not many albums start out with 3 stronger tracks than that.
Yeah.
Also throw a shout in there for One Tree Hill, a fantastic song.
No, man, I definitely dig Joshua Tree. I think its second half falters a little bit.
It does just a little bit. I do agree with that for sure.
But I mean, when you start off so heavy, like you just noted, I mean, it's fantastic. I do prefer Octung Baby too.
I actually do too, slightly.
We'll get to that in the 90s, ladies and
we
gentlemen.
will. You better let me have it too.
All that to say, man, good choices right there, man. I can't complain about the Boss and U2. And now we're gonna go to a group that who's gonna be one of the few, if maybe the only artists we have on here where we have every single record appearing on a list. But they only have 4 records. We have
REM's in that running so far, but yes.
Yeah, we have the Smiths, Strangeways, Here We Come. I have a full album reaction to this up. Shout out to our guy Evan David. As I noted, their 4th.
You just did that recently.
Yeah, their 4th and final record went to #2 on the UK charts. Very lush sounding in here and delivering the wit of Morrissey, especially on the track Girlfriend in a Coma, one of the great just 2-minute tracks right there. That sarcasm and wit of Morrissey coming in quite well. Vocal effects are in great effect on the opener, a rush and a push, and The Land Is Ours. And Last Night I Dreamt That Somebody Loved Me, I think, is one of their best songs as well, with that piano opening it up. I think it's a notable swan song too. One of the great bands of the 80s, man. Love me some Smiths. And next, we're going to shift gears quite a bit.
Are you actually pandering to individual votes now? So you're going to have Joseph's vote here, a big Marillion fan? I just gave it away.
Oh, man. Well, because you did this record.
I did full
Joseph,
album reaction.
Our patron. We have Marillion clutching at straws, man. Their 4th record, their last to feature Fish, the vocalist, Fish, who, Marillion, I know that's a big deal in the fan base.
Yeah, H comes on after this, Steve Hogworth, yeah.
I really like this album, because it kind of mixed a bunch of synths with that almost prog rock 70s influence as well.
Yeah, it definitely has that theme to it.
Yeah, it has a concept theme. Looks at our title character here, who just tries to drown his sorrows in the bottles. Yes. Alcohol pops up all throughout this record.
Does.
So I always dig whenever bands try to get creative with these concept like records, man. Warm Wet Circles is fantastic. Sugar Mice are highlights, but I think the whole album is so well produced and smooth that you can't really go wrong with it. And it honestly feels a bit Who inspired, with a little Tommy action.
Good take on that.
But all in all, man, shout out to Marillion. And that was the first album I ever listened to by him, and I'm glad I gave it a shot, man.
Yeah, and it's designed to listen to from start to finish. It definitely works best that way. Well, my 4th pick, shout out to Evan David again. And I don't know, is this a homer pick? I don't think it is, but I can't separate myself from this album because this album was so... I listened to this thing on repeat in my cassette, in my Alpine stereo. Shout out to those of us in the 80s. Hysteria, Def Leppard. 4th studio album, #1 in US and UK. Sold 20 million worldwide, 12 million in the US alone. Rick Allen Trey had lost his arm, and he thought up the title, the hysteria that came around his wreck and everything. Mutt Lange, the great Mutt Lange, He went to Def Leppard and said, because they tried to record this album with somebody else, it just didn't work. He said, you know what, it's going to be like Thriller. I want every song to sound like a single.
Right.
No filler, all killer. Of course, you got Pour Some Sugar on Me, which has been played so much that, you know, it loses its magic, but it's fantastic. Rocket, Gods of War. Shout out to some really political driven stuff there. And Hysteria, I love the title track.
Oh, yeah.
I love this whole album. I still love this whole album. I mean, I've listened to it so much, I wouldn't really sit here and listen to it just on my own again, just because. But I just think it's one of the seminal albums of the 80s, just as far as the success. And I think it separates Def Leppard significantly from other bands that they were lumped in with at the time. But
no, man, and when we did the full album reaction for it, I quite enjoyed it too. I just
it's a little long. That's the only thing you can say about it. It's a little long.
I just knew the hits, but yeah, even some of the deeper cuts on there are pretty darn good. And I'm with you in that type of vein. I think Def Leppard separates themselves from like a Poison or something along those lines,
or a Bon Jovi.
Yeah, so
don't start your Bon Jovi hate. I didn't want to give you that opening.
No, man, you got to watch that. Don't be bringing up New Jersey or anything.
Well, that's next year. But all right, so my last pick, Trey, and I flipped this from the time we drafted this because I had two that were just so tied at number 5 for me, but I ended up flipping it to this. Kick by INXS. Have a full album reaction of this 6th studio album. Provided them with that worldwide popular. I mean, Listen Like Thieves had some. I mean, there's some different hits they had, but this went over like crazy. Number 1 in Australia, 3 in the U.S., 9 in the U.K. Worldwide, 4 top 10 singles: New Sensation, Never Tear Us Apart, Devil Inside, and the number 1, Need You Tonight. I think those are the 4 best tracks in here.
Oh yeah.
But 12 songs, very consistent. Michael and the boys really this is their peak.
Oh no, man, I definitely like that pick right there. I was quite impressed when we I guess a lot of these we have done full album reviews or reactions.
Look at some of these years in the 80s where we haven't done hardly anything, but this one we have.
No, man, great picks right there, and I'm gonna finish it off with a little hip hop action. We're getting now to the
some
late
of the OGs.
Yeah, we're getting to the late 80s where we're getting to those records that hip hop's finding its way a little bit more. And we're coming off of Run DMC's popularity. We're going to one of my I think one of the best rappers of all time, man. We're going Eric B on the beats and Rakim with Paid in Full, their debut album. They completed this thing in only 1 week. They got in and busted it really quick. I think it is one of the great 80s hip hop albums that still stands the test of time.
High praise.
Rakim shows that his vocabulary, his rhyming and flow can blend seamlessly with Eric B's East Coast inspired beats. Wonderful sampling. James Brown in particular pops up a lot on this record, and the title track is so notable and acclaimed for a reason, man. So that is gonna finish out my list, Dad. We got a decent amount of honorable mentions here as well. Yeah, this is a very, very strong year.
It's a loaded year. So if you were wondering after my last tease of INXS at number 5, what was the album that was tied with it? It was The Lion and the Cobra, Sinead O'Connor's debut album. Just so well done, man. Just really, really enjoyed that one from start to finish. It was a big surprise for me. And of course, we got Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me from The Cure. Good, not great, not anywhere close to what is about to come. But we'll get to that in a couple years. Appetite for Destruction.
I know some people in the comments, where's Appetite at?
Appetite should be number 1. A lot of people are going to say that. I realize it's the greatest selling debut album of all time. I realize that the iconic tracks are iconic. Welcome to the Jungle, you hear it in that split second, and it's just
Paradise City.
Love
that bad boy too.
Yeah, so you're going to, and Mr. Brownstone is a little bit underrated in there, but for me, and Sweet Child of Mine, of course, which may be the best track on there. For me, it's just not quite as consistent as it needs to be. Then we'll go Music for the Masses, Depeche Mode. You've mentioned it before. One of the best bands I never really listened to a lot. I knew a little bit of their stuff. And then a guy who doesn't get much shout out, but this album may be his best. It's right up there with Scarecrow, maybe just a tad bit below. The Lonesome Jubilee, the great John Mellencamp.
Dude, like that pick. Also going a little Jesus and Mary Chain action, Darklands coming off their Psycho Candy record. Great follow-up there. Yeah. One of my favorite groups. It was tough for me to leave them off. I went with the Replacements, Pleased to Meet Me. Great record there. Anthrax, Among the Living, getting a little metal action up in here. Fleetwood Mac's Tango in the Night, Everywhere is going to be the highlight for me on that one. And then the Sisters of Mercy with a little Floodland action. I think as we're seeing, Dad, how many different genres that we got. That's what I'm kind of liking as we're getting further into this 80s decade, seeing that kind of experimentation through just all different genres.
Well, I mentioned it in the last several years, but I'm able to dive into a bunch of 80s albums that I've never heard before because you were very limited on what you were going to hear. It's what was on the radio, whatever you were ordering from Columbia or BMG on cassette. Shout out for the 12 for a penny. So as I told you at the front, I'm going to remind you, and we need to know who you think won. This proper spelling is SHAWN. Let us know in the comments below. Also leave your top 5 if you want. And the Guns N' Roses outrage, bring it on down below.
No, man, I'm sure they will. But we'll be back with 88 as the 80s decade is fast
almost
closing.
done.
So be sure to join us next week. And if you'd like to see our videos early and also vote in polls for listening parties for one of these records, you can become a patron. You can check out the link down below as well as the end screen. And man, we shout out all the patrons who help support the channel, man. Much appreciated. But I guess that'll wrap it up from here today. So until next time, thanks for watching, happy listening, and we will see you.